you guys can see each other for discussion.
Stream is starting up now. All set.
Welcome, everybody, to those of you who are watching our live stream or will be listening to this in person. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Art Commission's Art Project Support Region 10 Grant Panel Review. I'm Scott Wiley. I'm the Executive Director of Pro Bono Indiana, and I run the office in Evansville, Indiana. I'm a former regional arts partner when I ran our community foundation, and I'm currently the General Counsel for the Indiana Arts Commission. And it's my great pleasure to join you today, and all of you watching, welcome. We're so glad to have you participate in this wonderful kind of work that we do in the arts. So today is April 20th. If you have low vision, I'm a middle-aged guy on your screen when we start sharing our pictures, wearing a gray sweater and a blue and green check shirt. We're meeting online today and streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. There is no contact between the panel and the audience, however, about the disposition of applicants before, during, or after the panel meeting. This meeting will be recorded and made available upon request if you'd like to review it. At this time, I'm going to invite each of our panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they're from in the state. And you'll see on your screen right now that the panelists are listed. So I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves in the order in which their names appear on the screen right now. That'll try to keep it a little organized. So we're going to start with Annie. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, though.
I'm Ann Dowie. I'm a retired art teacher. I taught for 29 years, both elementary and secondary and college. So now I'm retired and I help with the IAC occasionally on their education committee.
And where are you from, Annie?
Originally from Phoenix, Arizona, and now preside in Posey County.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jarangan. I am a violinist with the Evansville Philharmonic Orchestra, as well as an artist in residence with the University of Evansville. And I am originally from Malaysia, from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And now I reside in Vandenberg County. Great. In Evansville. Mm-hmm.
Okay, my name is Kensington Eck. I own my own theater company called Think Pink Productions, and I've been a vocal specialist for the EVSC for the last 4 years. I'm actually in the process of transitioning to teaching right now. We'll have the only theater program at an elementary school level starting next year at the school that I teach at, which is really exciting. Big fan of the IAC and excited to get to panel with you guys today.
Hi, my name is Joe Atkinson. I'm an assistant professor of communication at the University of Evansville and a documentary filmmaker and playwright. I live in Evansville.
Great.
Hi, I'm Liz Furman-Bragg. I am the former curator at the Bluegrass Music Museum in Owensboro, Kentucky, and former registrar of the Evansville Museum in Evansville, Indiana. I am now volunteering with local arts organizations, and I am in Warwick County.
I'm Samantha Benty. I'm located in Evansville, and for money, I'm a brain injury specialist for a rehab hospital in Indianapolis, and for fun, I'm a community organizer in an arts neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Scott Salmon. I'm the director of bands at Princeton Community High School. This is my 9th year in education. I'm excited to be a part of the panel today. I reside in Evansville.
Great. Thank you guys so much for being willing to serve as our panelists today. And Anne, if you would like to introduce yourself and if any other staff members you want to introduce, just go right ahead.
Great, thanks, Scott. I'm Ann McKim. I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Southwestern Indiana, and we are the regional arts partner for the Indiana Arts Commission in Region 10, which is the group of grants that we're overseeing today. I have two of my colleagues in the call as well, Andrea Adams, our Gallery Director, and Zach Evans, our Director of Community Programming. And I do want to point out that the phone number listed on the previous slide for contacting us is outdated because we've had a big move over the last couple of years, and I think it didn't quite get changed, but it's 812-303-3178. Again, that's 812-303-3178, but we're very easy to find, and I can be contacted by the email that was listed, which is correct.
Thank you so much, Anne. And we're going to get the panel review started now. This is being recorded, so if you are listening at home or watching the live stream, this will be available later if you'd like that. And Anne or Zach actually just put the Arts Council's telephone number in the chat box. So this is how the process will work today. I'm going to announce the application that we'll be reviewing, and I'm going to ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. And again, we're trying to pay close attention to the specific evaluation criteria that folks wrote for. After the first reader is finished, I'm going to ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I'll open the discussion for any final comments from other panelists. Remember, in the interest of time, we're only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If the panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed on hold. That's the new virtual version of being asked to leave the room while the application is reviewed. However, there are no conflicts of interest on most of our applications, but we do have a few, and we'll announce those when we get to them. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we'll ask the panel to update their scores in the online system that we're using from this virtual world. It is very common, by the way, for scores to be changed as a result of the conversation that we'll be having this morning. These scores are then saved automatically and facilitated by staff and the regional arts partner. So before we get started, panelists, does anybody have a specific question? Okay, not seeing any. Let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start with the application for the Koch Family Children's Museum of Evansville, better known as CMO. The first reader on that is Kensington. So Kensington, I'm turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. So summarizing my comments, I think that the series and the information that you provided about the series, it's an excellent way to expose children and families to different artists and experiences that will keep people coming back to the museum. So that's an innovative way to keep getting people back in there. I would recommend that for the information that you could provide, the extra information, the flyer that was provided was not for an artist that's actually from Indiana, since the IAC grant does talk about benefiting Indiana artists, maybe for future information promoting those Indiana artists, I think would be really beneficial to the application. While also, that's an undeniably exciting cultural experience for children and families. Let me jump down to my next section. I saw that there were a lot of clear strategies in place for the programming to make things accessible to all peoples, which really supports the IDEA. I love that. And then jumping down a little further, I can see that in the application, you really do have COVID in mind and the restrictions that COVID places on the programming. I would love to hear more about potential quarterly offerings, even though, the world is on fire currently. If the world were not on fire, what might we be doing? So, but that really sums up my comments.
And with the pandemic comment included, I love it. Scott, you're going to be Scott, you're our second reader on this one.
Yeah, so just looking through here, the artistic quality, I thought that the applicant had good awareness, fun activities to attract kids, and I thought they had great ideas and motives to get more people involved. Obviously, their past experience with this project was noted. In community engagement, I thought that it was great that they had these satisfaction surveys that would be sent out. And, you know, it seems like that's determined how they can be more successful in the future. I would just tell them to continue to do that. I think that's a great idea. Their social media presence, looking through there, also seemed to be very much on par with the things that they were discussing in their application. And I think that the project management and budget seems reasonable and fair.
Great, thank you. Do any other panelists have any additional or other views on this application from CMO?
I have a couple of things that just might help the panel or the applicant be able to be a little more clear. It's a little unclear on the artistic quality and benefit section whether the children who see the performance will be directed to visit the Speak Loud Gallery, the Freedom Gallery, after the show, mostly because if the kids are going to utilize the techniques or ideas, educationally speaking, it's good to reinforce that right then, you know, just initially after the performance. And you may not have a way, or the applicant may not have a way to do that, but that's just one thing I was thinking about. Let's see, the other thing that I had was, I thought it was great that they had the strategy to have a free night and a lower fee for low-income families. I just wondered if there were other strategies in place to attract a diverse population.
Sam?
Yeah, I echoed some of those thoughts in my commentary in the application. I loved the strategies for overall recruitment to the museum. I didn't see any specific strategies for this series that they were requesting funding for in particular. In fact, the flyer that I looked at indicated that the fee was $8 a person, which would I wouldn't consider affordable. So that was a little bit of a kind of nope, that word's not coming to me. That's contradicted. Thank you. There we are. Contradicted the information in that section, which I think that did a great job of laying out exactly how the museum can be accessible, and that just didn't quite fit. So I'm sure that based on the thoroughness that was included in there, that there is a plan. I just didn't see it in there when I was reading through the request and the budget information.
Anybody else want to raise their hand? Okay, if not seeing any, then thank you to both of our readers on that. Please finalize your scores on this applicant and update your online comments. And we'll wait a brief moment to let everybody do that.
Can we do that afterwards? After the panel?
I believe that we're supposed to do them at this, but I will see if Dina might be able to answer that question specifically.
Yes, I will be officially closing all of the evaluations 1 hour at the close of this meeting. So if there's something you're not able to get right this moment, know that you have 1 hour from the time this ends.
Thank you so much. And by the way, that's just for our folks who are watching online or listening to this later. That's one of the wonderful staff people at the Indiana Arts Commission that help make sure that all of these grants and these programs run so wonderfully and efficiently. Okay, our next application that we're going to be doing is from the University of Southern Indiana Division of Outreach and Engagement. And they are doing business as the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art, which is over in New Harmony in Posey County. Sam is our first reader on that, and I apologize for the sirens in the background.
Thank you. Yes, I loved the thoroughness of the explanation of how this gallery, how they plan to implement the funding for this. The variety in the project series and the knowledge base and the team presenting it was impressive.
Sam,
And
Sam, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We need to move Annie. I forgot to do that.
Oh.
We need to move Annie to our conflict room.
Go for it.
So I will let the appropriate staff person who's moving people to conflicts rooms do that real quick.
And there should be a prompt on your screen to join the breakout room.
Scott, the way you say that makes it sound like she's being incredibly argumentative. Like, we have to move her to the conflict room with the padded walls so that we can.
I think you actually have to
this.
accept, and you have to accept on your screen the invitation to go to the conflict room.
I'm definitely writing a play now that's called The Conflict Room. That's going to be.
I hope so. I hope I get credit.
Do you need me to resend it, Anne?
Yeah, there we go.
I actually, yep, I just put her in the waiting room.
There we go. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Sam.
Sure. So I love the variety in the project. There are a lot of different mediums that are the focus. We've got ceramics, we've got specific shows, we've got community involvement and visiting artists. I just loved all of that. And the outreach to the community was really impressive to me. One thing that I did note, and you might hear this refrain from me a lot today, is that because of the small town advantage that they mentioned, I'd love to see ways included that they could encourage folks that find art in that community inaccessible to participate in the gallery. There's such a unique position having it as a free gallery and in such a close-knit community. And I thought it was really important what they said about the goal of bringing diverse perspectives into a majority Caucasian community. I thought that was really important that they recognized that and that they saw this as an opportunity to do that. And I just wish that in that there'd been just a little bit more about how to encourage those that might not naturally find the art to participate.
Great. Thank you so much. Dr. Gann, I think you're the second reader on this one.
Yes, thank you, Scott. I agree with Sam. A lot of I really enjoy seeing there's so many different medias and so many different topics that they can discuss and bring along to New Harmony, alongside what Sam had mentioned about community engagement and bringing in people that would not normally step into the museum or even educational wise. They have such a wonderful platform from USI for social for their advertising and their marketing. And I was just wondering if they could incorporate maybe like a virtual gallery for and that will be accessible for everyone to be at the museum without really being there. And that was just my thought. Just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gann. Does anybody else in the panel want to add or provide any other perspective on the New Harmony Gallery of Contemporary Art? Okay, not seeing. Oh, Joe.
Sorry, Scott. I was still skimming through my my copy there, my comments there. The only thing that I would suggest, and this is more just kind of a helpful tip, I felt like I had to read pretty far into this one before I understood exactly what the program was and what they were bringing to the community. Once I got there, I thought it was fascinating. There were actually a couple of exhibits that I thought, God, I'd like to go see that. But the kind of initial description of what is this project felt really vague to me, whereas down deeper it got incredibly specific. And I thought if they could have had a little bit more in that initial description, it would have hooked me a little bit faster. So just as a reader, I felt like I worked fairly hard on that. So in future applications, that might be something that could help help improve their,
Very kind. Okay, I'll give everybody a second if you wanted to update anything else. And I will ask whoever the magical staff person who is inviting our conflict room people back to invite Annie back.
And she is making her way back in now.
That's wonderful. And Joe, I do hope you write that because I'll use my superior knowledge of intellectual property law to get my portion of the proceeds. Welcome back, Annie. Okay.
I hope there's something to give you at the end of it, Scott.
Here we go. I hope so. Now, the next one we're going to do is the Warwick Public Education Foundation, one of the folks that do summer musicals. And I will not lobby to be Farmer Fred if they do Oklahoma, although that was my greatest starring role in high school. So the Warwick Public Education Foundation and is the first reader on that. And go right ahead. And you are muted still.
Okay. Yes, I always forget to do that. Basically, I thought overall it was a very thorough presentation, and we got a lot of information. The only thing that I really thought would be good was to know the name of the show, although, and mostly because I would want to know how inclusive it was. But then when I looked down at the number of people participating and that there were 100 artists involved, that was great, and how many people they thought would be attending. So really that was sort of a moot point. But it might be better to have that up further in the description. That's the only thing I really had on that.
Great, thank you so much. And Kensington, I think you are the second reader on this one.
I think you are right. Thank you, Scott. So summing everything up, I thought the photos, information, and the program that were provided with the application were creative and really supporting the high quality in the artistic quality section. So that was enjoyable. Jumping down. So I would love to get more of the IDEA targeting. I'd love to know more about what the organization is doing to target not only students from different communities, but also audience members. Like how do we give them opportunities to come in and see these shows, make sure it's affordable for everybody. And then I thought that the timeline looked appropriate and well managed for future grant applications, especially, from looking through lots of applications in the past. I think having a bullet point list would be very helpful for the budget. I think it kind of helps us read it a little bit better. And, kind of like what Joe was saying earlier, it helps. It helps if the information is laid out in a certain kind of way. But overall, I thought it was a nicely put together application.
Great. So do any other panelists have anything additional or can provide us stuff? And I see Sam's raising her hand.
Thank you. One piece that I found concerning was when I got to the budget and saw that there is a line item under income for student fees, which in itself is not an issue, but that was not addressed in the barrier section, and I could see a student fee being a barrier to participation. So the fee itself wasn't concerning; it's that wasn't addressed anywhere else in the application. So I'd love to know more about how those fees are assessed, how they're waived, how they affect participation, just in terms of a whole picture of how that's happening.
And I looked through my notes again and realized that again on the IDA, knowing if the scholarships are targeted toward those with financial need or with theatrical prowess, those kind of things would help determine whether or not you're trying to expand the socioeconomic base of the arts. So that's the only other thing that I forgot when I started.
Great. Liz, did you want to add something?
I did, thank you. My largest comment had to do with the affordability of the ticket prices. As a mother of three, I didn't find it very affordable ticket prices for my entire family to come and see, and I didn't see any plan listed on how to reach audience members who wouldn't be able to afford those tickets. And so that was a red flag for me. I would like to see them put some thought into ways to include a more diverse audience who wouldn't normally be allowed to come and see this, because part of what they were saying was that they were bringing quality theater to Warwick County, and they're correct. We don't have a lot of quality theater in Warwick County. It would be nice for it to be available for all.
Possibly having a family price or something like that might help.
Great. Anybody else have any additional comments on this one?
just possibly having a family price, that might help alleviate that problem of having, you know, you have 5 kids, you're not going to be able to afford to go to very many things. So.
Okay, well, I'll give everybody a few minutes to update anything you want to do. And we'll note, if I was ever given a scholarship to be in a play, it would not be for artistic prowess. Little arts humor for our break.
I was on mute, but I was laughing very hard.
Thank you, Ms. Eck, who actually does have artistic prowess in the performing arts of theater.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, as everybody goes ahead and puts in their last updates and stuff, the next one we're going to be going to is the Actors Community Theater. Our first reader on that is Joe, and that's followed by Sam. So Joe, go right ahead.
Oh, I'm already unmuted. Look at that. Okay, first of all, I thought this was a pretty thorough application. I didn't have a ton of notes on it, but I did in the first section for artistic quality and artist benefit, initially wanted to ask if they could draw a clearer picture as to what the purpose of the project is. They indicate that they want to produce 3 shows, but I was curious as to what end. Is it for more community involvement? Is it for additional exposure to theater? And wanted to see them draw those lines a bit more clearly. Of course, I then have a parenthetical after that that says that in the next part of the question, in the community engagement section, they seem to answer that question. So kind of going back to my earlier theme of having to look a little farther, and I wondered if they would consider moving that up next time that they do this, just to make clear exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it in that artistic quality section. Community involvement. I was a bit confused in reading the section regarding how they interacted with the community to select the season, as it kind of segued into talking about in-person conversations and rehearsals, which I thought that would come after the selection process. So I wanted, I guess, again, a more direct thought on how the community is involved in making these selections and choosing what shows and how this goes about. But I was really excited to hear more about their attempts to connect with La Familia. I thought that their outreach, they did do a good job of being very specific about what they were going to do there. And everything as far as budget and timeline seemed in order. I would have liked to have seen more about Heath and his background, not because I questioned that he was capable of doing this, but again, it says specifically ask for qualifications and that sort of thing. And I felt that was missing.
Great. Sam?
I echo all of those comments with an emphasis on not only having a better understanding of Heath's qualifications, which I totally agree, not because I doubt, but because to understand fully the impact that his role would have. But also there are so many supporting folks listed in the budget and in other places that I would have liked to have known more about in that staffing area as well. But I echo all the other comments from Joe.
Great. Do any other panelists have any comments or additions for this specific application?
Yes, Scott, I would love to add, I'm looking for a little bit more clarity on the artistic quality and artist benefit. I wanted to know, is this the first year for this specific project? The description says that it occurs every year, but it is listed as a new project. It's got 0 in the number of years it's been done in the past. So I'd love to get a little bit of clarity on that, on who is going to be paid from the IAC funds. There are a lot of people listed under the support, and I just would like to know where those funds are going. I thought that the budget was really well broken down. And then I'd love to hear about more intentional steps in meeting with like the Latino community, the organizations that they listed. I'd just like to hear something a little bit more specific. It sounds like great initial steps, but I'd love some more details for that.
Great. Thanks so much, Kensington. Anybody else have anything they wish to add? Okay, with that, go ahead and take a few moments if you need to update or want to change any scores or do anything. And while we do that, we're going to ask our staff to invite Anne, by the way, who's a wonderful artist. I was telling her when we did this, I actually have a piece of her art, and we're going to be talking about one of the organizations that she's worked with. So she'll be a conflict on this next one, which is the New Harmony Business Associates Education Outreach Fund, and that's why she will be unjoining us for a moment. Is that better than being in the conflict room now?
Yep, she's in the waiting room.
There we go. That's wonderful. And by the way, for those of you who are watching or listening, that's part of the integrity of this panel process, that if any of us have any specific relationship with any of the applicants, we always take great care to make sure that those folks are not participating in the actual evaluation of that specific thing, to make sure that the evaluation is done by independent individuals. So we really appreciate that. And so we will now go to the New Harmony Business Association Education and Outreach Fund, which is an organization out of Posey County. Liz is our first reader on that, and that's going to be followed by Samantha. So Liz, go right ahead.
Overall, I thought this was a really strong application. The list of organizations that they are working with in order to obtain diversity in medium and artists was very impressive to me. It shows a thought process geared towards inclusion and diversity. My only suggestion would be maybe to contact Angel Mounds for maybe some additional diversity in those artists' product. The fact that it's a free outdoor festival just makes it a fabulous opportunity for people to be exposed to the arts. The location concerns me a little bit because New Harmony is difficult to get to if you don't have transportation. And I'd like to see some thought process put into alternate means of transportation for people who wouldn't normally have access to something like this. For the timeline, I thought it was very well thought out and appropriate for the size of the event. Relying on volunteers to staff an event is always a gamble, but this has been happening for many years and it seems to work for them. And so that's really amazing that they're able to get that to work out on an all volunteer staff. The budget is reasonable and shows a good amount being paid directly to artists. I would like to see a little bit more information on how it affects Indiana artists directly, because there's no specifics on how many of the artists percentage-wise are in Indiana. I understand that we're in the tri-state area, and so you're going to get artists from Illinois and Kentucky, of course, but the grant is supposed to directly help Indiana artists.
Great, thank you so much. And go right ahead.
Great. Well, first off, as a community organizer, I greatly appreciated the ongoing panic avoidance list in the timeline that spoke to my soul. So I had a couple of different notes. I agree about the diversity. I also, I just was looking at the evaluation section, and it occurred to me that the most important people to survey in this might in fact be the artists rather than the attendees. And the surveillance was really geared toward attendees. What did you learn today? Doing some verbal stuff, which I love the verbal interaction, but finding a way to directly survey the artists that are affected, since this was a little bit unique in how many artists could financially benefit from it, seemed important, and a much easier group to corral than roaming visitors. I was perusing the provided links, and this could be, I could be off base on this, but I wasn't able to make the numbers on their budget match the information on their application line. They indicated $125 per artist in their income, but I could only find $115. It's a $15 application fee and a $100 booth fee. So I didn't know exactly how that broke down. And then it indicated that they were giving out, they have in their budget line $1,500 for prizes. And I only saw 4 prizes of $250 each outlined on the application. And it could be addressed otherwise. I chose to evaluate that at face value, to take that information as it was given, but there was some discrepancies in the information provided in the links that they gave versus the information that they gave in their budget. So just as a point of note, that was a little bit confusing for me.
Great. And does anybody else in the panel have anything they wish to add or do on this? And Joe, you're waving your finger.
I am. I had a couple of things actually. One, I bounced back up because I was in the wrong section here. The estimates on crowd, they acknowledged in the narrative that the the numbers are from past years and basing it on past years probably wasn't realistic due to the era of COVID, which I really appreciate that they acknowledge that. But then in the numbers of the participant estimates and the numbers they put in, they still used those old numbers. So that felt like a disconnect to me. I wasn't really sure which part of that to pay attention to. And just again, kind of a note in the early part of this, early on, there's a lot more detail about New Harmony as a whole than about this event specifically. And so I would have liked to have seen more time on the event itself and less on the town, as well as how past events will inform this one. And I would have liked to have known a little bit more about the educational component of the program and what that was going to look like, some specifics on that.
Great. Anybody else want to add any additional comments? Not seeing or hearing any, go ahead and take a few moments to update anything that you have. And I will ask the magical folks running Zoom to invite Annie back to the main room.
She is back in.
And she's back. You know, when you come back, it makes a doorbell noise. It's really kind of fun.
It doesn't do that on my end.
We get to hear it when we have our last conflict because you're not it.
I know.
So you'll get to hear that doorbell.
Okay.
What's it like in the conflict room? Is it angry?
No,
No.
it's the little circle going around and saying you're in timeout, basically.
Excellent.
Okay, so our next organization that we're going to review is the Northwest Territory Art Guild. And Scott is going to be our first reader on that, followed by Joe, who's doing the second read. So Scott, go right ahead. And you want to unmute. There we go.
Okay, thank you. So I thought this was a very strong application, lots of detail. And I also just thought that it was worth noting how it looks like this is their second year of doing just this project in general, with those First Friday art walks. It seems like they've kind of
It looks like we may have lost Scott. If you can hear us, Scott.
Hello? Am I here?
There we go. We're back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I'll just start over. So I felt like this application was in really great detail. I thought that it seems like this is the second year for this project, and how they're kind of utilizing and kind of making a positive spin with the pandemic, of really getting a lot of the community involved. I thought that was really great to see, and it's, how they're outreaching to several key parts of the community, all the way from the mayor, city council, and other civic organizations within the community. And then they've noted that they are trying to use more Indiana artists as possible, which of course we love. The community engagement I mentioned, let's see, reaching out to underserved portions of the community and generating feedback for their improvement as they continue to make this stronger. Their social media outlet seems engaging and responsive to its audience, and seems like a place where they are also able to get some more feedback on what is happening. And then project management seems clean and precise. The timeline is I felt like it was very well detailed, month to month. It seems manageable, evident, based on what was seen on their social media, just kind of cross-checking those items.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Go ahead, Joe.
Going back, kind of piggybacking off what Scott said about the Indiana artists, I did note, if I remember this correctly, that the all of the examples of the last ones, which I thought looked great, were not Indiana artists. So I wanted to see, I guess, ask and know a little bit more about what efforts they were doing to put more of a focus on Indiana artists this time around, if they are, which the application seemed to indicate that they were. So I wanted to see a little clearer line drawn there. the initial description included, as Scott said, a tremendous amount of information. I actually wanted them to streamline it just a little bit. Things about insurance and that sort of thing, I didn't know that they were as relevant as just knowing what was going to happen and what the project is, which I was really interested in reading a little bit more about. And there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, early in the application, they discussed how organizations serving underserved populations would be consulted about the locations of the new sculptures, which I thought was just a great outreach opportunity. And down where it actually asked that specific question, they didn't talk about that as much as they did up earlier. I really thought that they had a chance to hammer that home there in the section on dealing with on working with underserved populations. I thought that was a great initiative that they were doing to go out and have those conversations about where the locations would be and where the best places would be to hit those underserved populations. And I actually wanted to hear a little bit more about that in that section, because I thought it was a really, really strong point for this program.
Great, thank you guys so much. So does any panelists, Annie, you want to go ahead and add?
Yeah. I just wanted to make a correction. I think there in last year's artist, there was one from Indiana, but I had that same concern about how many, and it's more in the question that we were to look at than it was in the artist they chose, because there's two parts to that, if I can find it, in terms of the artist benefit, I think. It says, will the proposed project financially benefit the work of Indiana artists? And so as a panelist, I was like, well, do we put more emphasis on the financial benefit of artists, or that they need to be Indiana artists? But as an artist, because as an artist, the work of any artist, especially national artists, does benefit Indiana artists. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think there's a benefit either way, and maybe that could be divided into two sections or something on the next time we do a grant, because I felt that even though there was they couldn't guarantee that there would be Indiana artists, that Indiana artists will see these things and benefit just from seeing the kinds of things that national artists are doing.
Just a quick clarification in terms of the criteria. It is specifically to financially benefit Indiana artists, whether it's directly through the organization's budget or through the program itself. But it is specifically financial benefit due to Indiana artists being hit so hard as a result of COVID. So that is why that was added in this particular year.
Yes, I didn't remember it from last year, so.
And for those of you who are listening, that was a staff member for the Indiana Arts Commission that answered that question. Go ahead, Ann.
Well, and the other thing was just that I lost my train of thought here. Oh, that the proposal did say that this year they would give priority to Indiana artists, but I know that there are not that many large-scale sculptors anywhere, not just in Indiana. So in terms of, you kind of have to decide, do you want quality first or stick to Indiana? And both have their advantages, but it might be better to help panelists know a priority, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add on this application? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead and make any changes you'd like. Next one we're going to be doing, if you want to pull it up, is the Public Education Foundation of Evansville. Okay, as I mentioned, the next one that we're going to be going over is the Public Education Foundation of Evansville. And Dr. Gann is going to start us off being the first reader of that, followed by Liz.
Application.
Okay, I think Dr. Gann has frozen up on us for a minute. Dr. Gann, I'm gonna.
They do a survey.
Okay, there you froze up when you started. So if you could start again, you did the same thing Scott did.
Okay, great. I really enjoyed reading this application. It's very thorough and very well detailed and organized. Artistic quality wise, I was happy to see that they did a survey with the audience and decided through the survey what musical they would play next. But I do think I was wondering if they would have other choices of musical that would actually feature like Indiana or having an Indiana composer or something like that along those lines. Artist benefit, they had many Indiana local musicians as well as vocal director. I was thinking if this application is so focused on having Indiana artists, they hired Robert Hunt, which is a Illinois director. He's wonderful, but I was wondering if they could include more Indiana artists in that sense, like hiring a director that's from Indiana. Community engagement was, I love seeing that they had many people that could be involved and volunteer in this program. I would love to see their point on including schools that don't have theater program or music program. They only mentioned one school. I was wondering, there are so many other education programs around, and they could invite those schools and elaborate on that more. Inclusion, diversity, equity, access. I like that they had offered tickets to as a auction item for some organizations that would allow people that normally would not have access to a musical theater performance, and that was wonderful as well. So I think that's all I have for notes. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Liz, you're next.
I agree with most of what Dr. Gann said. I think my biggest addition, again, is the cost to attend a performance. They mentioned that they donate tickets to silent auctions, but that doesn't exactly reach underserved audiences. It's more about helping other nonprofits who are fundraising. So I would like to see some direct information on how they plan on making sure that underserved audiences are also getting to view the performances. And that is all I have to add.
And does anybody else have something they want to add on this application? I see Joe got your hand up.
I do, and I actually mostly just have a question. And I know that they're not allowed to answer me, but I'm a bit confused as to the answer to one of the financial questions. They specifically state all the paid staff is selected through an application and interview process that includes a representative, et cetera, et cetera. And then under the how many artists will directly financially benefit through this project, the number is 0. So I was confused by that, those two things, that there is no paid, no one's benefiting, but there is paid staff. So I was, yeah, that was a question that I had as I was reading it, that they might want to look at the next time they fill out that application.
Great, thank you so much. And Anne, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that in the community engagement and IDEA section, that I thought it was great there was access to bus routes, and that would be really helpful to low-income areas of the city and reaching out to private and parochial and homeschool students as well. But as one of the other panelists said, that price could still be an issue to those people. And I don't know if there's a way that they could include those people without I just don't know how they could do that, but if they can figure out a way, it'd be great. That's all.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have any comment that they'd like to add on this application? Okay, seeing none. What we're going to do at this point, we are approximately 2/3 of the way through our list today. We're going to take a 5-minute break that I'm actually going to time, so you can update, but you can also run to the restroom or get yourself a soda or a glass of water. So 5 minutes, as Alexa says, starting now.
Thank you, 5.
Thanks for the break, Scott.
You are most welcome, my friend.
We're moving through this efficiently.
Pardon?
I think we're moving through this efficiently.
You know, and by the way, thank you all of the panelists. You guys, your stuff has just been so insightful, and all the help that you provide to the applicants by providing these comments is really helpful. I will tell you, as a former grant maker from the Community Foundation, I always know how much that means to because everybody wants to write better grants, and those comments have been really wonderful. Thank you for doing the detailed review you've done.
I certainly do, and I'll watch my panel, the grant that I applied for, coming up soon as well. All right, thanks. I'm going to shut my video and my mic off again.
Okay.
Hi,
we'll see
Ann.
you in-
Lurk in the background.
Look in the background. One of the many uses for the cell phone, right? And I see a cat has joined us.
Yes, she's a guest panelist.
I think that I'm actually right now in an office in Indianapolis, so I am not able to have my cat join us. So if everybody can regather and join us back online, for those of you who are watching at home, or for those of you who are listening to this as a recording later, we just finished our 5-minute break and we're reconvening the Arts Project Support Panel for Region 10. And we're going to move on to our next application, which is from Patchwork Central in Evansville, Indiana. And Kensington is our first reader on that, and Scott is our second reader on that. So Kensington, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. So I thought that the supporting pictures and material were incredibly helpful in showing how the children specifically were benefiting from this program and creating future artists. There's clear diversity in the participants, showing the art that the kids were making is very effective and definitely helps support the detailed information that I found in this application. I thought that there was a clear plan to engage the whole community in the programming. It seemed very well thought out, clear steps that support the mission statement. And I also appreciated that they, specifically addressed the goals that they were hoping for, while also acknowledging the current climate that we're in with everything that's going on. It seems like they kind of have a plan for everything, and they were assessing the programming as they move along, which I thought was, insightful and very appropriate for where we're at.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And Scott, you're the second reader.
Yeah, so piggybacking from Kensington, I felt like with their past successes that they mentioned and their veteran staff, it seems like they've got an incredible team here. I also noted that they said they do activities that are unduplicated, which I think is really cool and important, especially with young kids. Community engagement, it's great that they're able to reach out to their neighborhood and get local kids and their families involved. And they also provide surveys to families on, how they can, do better in the future. And I think that has kind of helped making this project successful and year after year. I thought the project management and timeline seemed manageable, and the budget seems in line. And I especially just noted that it seems like everyone is being given an opportunity that wants to be involved, which I thought was fantastic.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any comments or additions for Patchwork Central? Joe?
Yeah, just quickly, I didn't actually have a lot of questions on this one at all. It was pretty thorough, but they did indicate in the community outreach that they were looking to expand outreach as part of their work to adapt to a post-COVID world. And I wanted to see a slightly clearer line drawn as to what that looks like. Will there be new populations within the schools that are already targeted? Are they expanding the number of schools that they're reaching out to? Just wanted a little bit more detail on that.
Great. Sam?
Yeah, I just I agree the application was very thorough. And I loved in the community engagement section how much they talked about their neighborhood that they serve. I'd love to know more about their recruitment strategies for the population and the neighborhood. I just didn't see anything specific outlined for that unless I missed that. So
great. Okay, not seeing any more hands. Go ahead and take a moment to update any comments or scoring that you need to do. And the next one we'll be moving to when you get done with that is the Evansville African American Museum. And Annie and Kensington are the readers on that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oops, I totally skipped. Ignore me for a moment. That's because of the conflict. We're actually going to do the Princeton Band Boosters next, which is Sam's the first reader and Dr. Gann is the second reader, but we're going to send Scott, who's already gone, to the conflict room. So, and this is going to be your chance to hear the doorbell when we invite him back. So I apologize for getting ahead of myself. So we're going to go to the Princeton Band Boosters. So Samantha, go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm not really sure where to start. So I love the band concept, of course. I might start at the bottom, actually, if that's okay with everyone. I think that the budget was interesting for me to see. I'd like to know more about how much the fee is per student and how much this funding would actually affect that number. I saw I think it was a $200 fee, $250 fee, but I don't know exactly what the impact this would have on it. There are also a lot of other fundraising opportunities included in the budget, and it wasn't clear if those fundraising opportunities offset that amount or if it was a supplement to prevent that number from being higher. So that was confusing for me in terms of finances. I thought that the recruitment area, oh, my session's expiring. Hang on, there we go, perfect. I thought that the impact was great, how many students they had participate. I really enjoyed reading about, or watching the video of their band performance last year. I thought that gave me a great idea of how they've been able to adapt in the world of COVID, and it made me excited for the opportunities that they would have given more time together. Under the experience section, the project management, I missed the opportunity to know who was going to be filling what role and what experience they brought to the table. I can see obviously that it takes a lot of gears to keep this going, but I would like to know who's filling those roles to accurately evaluate how well that might go. Similarly, I think that everyone who was identified seemed like a strong presence within the group, but I didn't get a lot more information about that. Yeah, the relevant experience of the project manager was not discussed. The timeline lacked some prep time, recruitment time, and focused only on performances. I would have liked to have known a lot more about, there's so much going on clearly with all of these listed fundraisers and all of the student community pools they're pulling from, and there was just very little information about how they prepare for that season. I think that sums up my big comments about this, and just basically knowing who is involved, what the timeline is for that involved, and how this funding would directly impact the students that are involved with it.
Okay, Dr. Gann?
Yes, I agree with everything that Sam said. I did feel like this application needed a lot more detailed description. One thing about fees that I was also quite confused about, because their purpose was to decrease the fees from students, as I read, but then you look in the budget and there's $250, which isn't quite that accessible for many families. And I would love to see how they would reach out to other communities as well. And that they briefly said it at the beginning where they served many different school corporations, but they don't describe how would they involve other students at underserved communities or other group in the community as well. So I'd love to hear more about that. And I have one question about, in the budget that it says props. I understand that bands sometimes need props, but I was wondering, they should include something about instruments as well. They probably need funding for, servicing, maintaining instruments or anything. I would love to see that in there, being a musician myself. And they did not really have any survey or any kind of media to actually judge or have to find, I'm losing my words, to have something that would be able to comment on how they're doing, or having which community that they have reached out to successfully. So I would love to actually see that in there as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Do any other folks have any additional comments to shed light on those or anything else? Liz?
My only comment that I have in addition to this was I would like to know how they're attempting to reach families, to educate them about the opportunities, and to know how many students in the band participate in the free or reduced lunch program, so we can get a good idea of where the funds are going and how it's directly helping the students.
Great. Anybody else have any additional comments? Okay, Anne and then Joe. Anne, you're muted.
Okay. I wondered if there were any other strategies besides economic to include diverse populations. And I know, you know, at the high school level, it's going to be really hard to include kids who didn't have access to instruments earlier or music education earlier. I wondered if there was a community-wide or a school-wide effort to increase knowledge and use of instruments at the lower levels below them. And in other words, making some sort of ladder system and targeting underprivileged kids who can't afford instruments. I would like to know that.
Okay, Joe? And you're muted.
I knew it as soon as I started doing it, but I was already onto the internet, onto the Google Chrome screen. So first of all, it sounds like a terrific program. To kind of echo some of the financial questions, I wanted a clearer picture of what this cost is going toward. Is it going to defray the cost of those students who couldn't otherwise afford to be part of it? Is some the fee coming off for every student? How exactly is that going to be used? So I know that's echoing a little bit, but the other question that I had, I understand that families are encouraged to attend booster meetings, and they talk about feedback coming from, that they get their feedback by going to different competitions and seeing how they're doing. I was curious as to if there was any feedback mechanism from the students, if there was feedback mechanism from the parents. You know, not just are we becoming a better band, but are we having a good experience? Is this a positive experience for the students? I wanted to know if there was some feedback mechanism for that aspect of the dialogue.
Great. Any other comments? If not, go ahead and take a minute to update things. I will tell you, as a former member of the Carmi High School marching band, I'm an example of how being told that a drummer will allow you to develop better rhythm is an untrue statement. And I remained a terrible drummer the entire 4 years, but I really enjoyed my band experience. So whoever the magic room, and here's your chance to listen for the doorbell. Let's invite Scott back. There we go. Scott, welcome back.
Got it.
So as folks finish up putting entries and stuff in, the next one we're going to move on to the Evansville African American Museum in Evansville, Indiana. Annie's the first reader on that, and Kensington's the second reader on that. So, and whenever you're ready, you go right ahead.
I was saving my last one. Okay. Let me get to that page. Okay, first of all, I thought the project was fairly well described in terms of the kids learning about their community and verbally repeating that and presenting that as a performance. However, I thought there could be more feedback and it could be more thorough. I just didn't feel like there was enough elaboration or examples. A lot of clarification would be helpful on how they picked the people to be interviewed, and a direct link to the example of the spoken word project would be helpful, and it wasn't on their website. I did contact them, but not until yesterday because I am a procrastinator. But I did hear back from Lana, and she said that they had some staff changes, and she when I pointed it out, she said, "Oh, I realize that's not on there." She was going to try to get it up by today, but it wasn't there before this project, or this panel.
And
So
to chime in, there's not to be any outside information that was not provided in the application or direct communications between panelists and applicants. And so any information provided cannot be taken into consideration for this grant.
Okay. Let's see. So the community was included, and it wasn't just for the community because they were actively involved. But I still thought it would be better if they told us how the people were chosen and how the students, it just wasn't enough information basically overall. Project management, the experience of the staff, I think, and the artists would be helpful. Knowing what the student and community support consisted of would be helpful. Again, just not thorough enough for me to get a clear indication of whether or not this would be functional as a grant. So anyway, that's what I have.
Okay, Kensington, what additional things do you have to add?
Yeah, so I'm going to go into a few more specifics. Overall, I kind of agree with the things that Annie was saying. So some of the questions that I still had were, they talk about 2 artists are listed as directly financially benefiting from the project's budget, but it wasn't listed how many instructors there will actually be. So I don't know if those 2 artists that they mentioned are the instructors they're talking about. It also feels like there's a lot of things that they're going to be asking the instructors to do. Is 2 enough if 2 is the number that is supposed to apply to the instructors? So definitely need some more clarification with that. Jumping down to community engagement, the second link that was provided did not work when I tried to go to that. And I'd also like to know some more details about the IDEA strategies. What specific youth serving organizations were they in communication with? How will the entire community be able to see the final projects? Is it something that everybody has to come into the museum, or they talk about a traveling exhibition? Where will they travel to? Will it be places that have easy access to people of all economic means, into different communities? I'd love more information there. And then jumping down to project management, we don't have the information available in the grant to know about appropriately experienced staff that would carry the project out. I would love to know more about that. And while I do see a breakdown of the project budget, it's pretty general. And I also saw that $3,000 was listed as in kind, but there was no description of what that money or service was for the $3,000. So ultimately, I think it comes down to more details, more clarification for what could be, definitely a worthwhile project.
Great, thanks so much. Does anybody else have any additional comments they'd like to make on this? Samantha?
I thought that I loved the linkage of students and community, but this seemed to me like an application that exists as a really amazing idea in someone's head that just did not translate into the application in terms of thoroughness and the information that I needed to really evaluate it well. There were hints at things of pieces of information that I needed, hints at the community serve, but never directly addressing, where will this recruitment take place? Who are the students that are a part of this? What exactly is the venue for sharing this information? Is it the museum, or is it the senior center that they alluded to at one point? Is it the schools? So there were some really big pieces of information that I needed to understand the project more fully, even though I can see that it exists in this like really amazing idea. I just needed more.
Okay. Anyone else have any additional comments they'd like to make? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead and do any updates that you need to make on your entries on scoring or comments. And the next one we're going to be going to is Vincennes University up in Knox County, their Humanities Film and Lecture Series. Our first reader on that, whenever he's ready, is Joe. And Sam, you're the second reader on that one.
My apologies. I was still making some updates to the last one.
Nope. Whenever
so
you're ready.
Just now pulling this up, and let me look at what I wanted to say. Okay, generally speaking, I thought this was a pretty thorough application. I know it doesn't qualify as constructive feedback, but reading over these, I thought I kind of want to go to some of these. So I thought it was a good, thorough. I felt like I understood what the artistic quality and benefit was of these programs. In terms of community engagement, I definitely felt like they had some ideas, strategies in place to make the event accessible. But I did want to know if there was a plan for active outreach to underserved communities. It seems in and of itself that some of the program selection feels itself like outreach to at least bring some inclusion, bring some different perspectives and some diversity into the community. And that felt like a really natural opportunity for doing outreach to some different communities. And I wanted to see a clearer line drawn for how they were going to do that and what that's going to look like, and how they're going to try and bring additional populations in who might not otherwise necessarily come to these events, especially because it seems that they're making an effort to have programming that would speak to that. As far as the budget and the staffing and that sort of thing, all of that I thought looked good. Like I said, I think it's a pretty thorough application. That was the main question that I had.
Great, Sam.
I echo a lot of that. Those are very similar comments to what I made. I noted that I'd love to see more of a planning and implementation timeline that was beyond just the event timeline. I very strongly echo your point of active outreach. There's so much opportunity here. I was really impressed by the van partnership. I also noted that there seems like a lot of ways here that you can reach students and professors, but social media seemed like a really great opportunity to expand to the public through peer-to-peer sharing. I, like Joe, read this and thought, gosh, I would love to go to this. But looking through the marketing materials, I didn't see any way that you might reach someone like me who's not involved. And of course, this is not all about me, although most things are. But I did feel like there would not be a lot of ways for someone like me who's not directly in that community to hear about this. And I think that's maybe a missed opportunity because it does seem like such a phenomenal presentation.
And it's not always about you.
Very rarely is it not, though. So
does anybody else have any additional comments for this application? Okay, not seeing any. Go ahead and do any updates that you want to do to your scoring. Perhaps we can talk to the Indiana Arts Commission about adding a criteria next year that they need to explain how it will benefit Sam.
I did feel that was missing this year.
Good.
Thank you for your support.
Great. And while people are putting in their last updates and everything, we're going to go to our last application for the Arts Project Support Panel today here in Region 10. It's the application for the Old Town Players. And Liz, you get to be the reader number 1 on that and your second reader on that.
Okay. My initial takeaway from this grant was that I was confused. I didn't find it to be very clearly written. I'm not seeing how the project will directly financially benefit artists in Indiana. Not saying that it won't. I'm just not seeing how that's explained in the application. There isn't very much information offered. There isn't a defined method for utilizing the community in planning the production or for reaching underserved audiences besides keeping ticket prices low. But I don't really know what that means, what the ticket prices are. They have been thinking about how to have more families participate in the shows. And if that is their goal, then that's really wonderful. But there doesn't seem to be a clear plan for how to gather feedback or increase participation beyond offering more family-friendly productions. I really like that they are inviting underserved communities to dress rehearsals. I think that's an excellent way to reach that audience and to provide them with the opportunity to see something they wouldn't normally see. I would also hope that they have an opportunity to see it in the stage, that when they're seeing it, it's towards the end of rehearsals where it's well presented. The budget was very confusing to me. In kind is listed under expenses, which didn't really seem to jive for me. The budget numbers, I added them up over and over again, and I could not get them to add up. It did not make sense to me. So I think they really need to take a really good look at their budget and make sure that it's clear and that everything adds up.
Okay. And all yours. And you are muted again.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. I pretty much agree with what our previous panelists said. I was also very confused about the budget, and even though I found a way to make all the numbers work, it sort of seemed like sketchy math to me, like putting things in that were in kind. The cash expenses should have matched the total cash income, but because of the in-kind being put in the wrong place, I think, I'm not a budget person, but it didn't seem to add up. But when you looked at it totally, in terms of income, and if you looked at in-kind as income or expense, then it added up, sort of. In terms of the, let me look at my notes here. In terms of whether the proposed project financially benefited the work of artists, it seemed to me that this was a totally volunteer situation, if I'm remembering which one this is. And I think that's great. But that's another reason that I an issue with the financially benefiting the Indiana artists, because I think just benefiting rather than financially benefiting might be a better kind of question. But that is what the question is. Will it financially benefit the work of Indiana artists? And I didn't see that. Let me look back at the budget and make sure, but no, it was personnel was 0. And other personnel 0. So it's totally, which I think is great that it's all volunteer, because it's a community that is working together. But I still have trouble with the budget and that financial question. So that's all.
Cool. Does anybody else have any additional comments on this application?
Yes, I'd love to add a couple things. And just kind of jumping more into specifics, getting into the first section, the artistic quality. So while I appreciate the pictures that were provided in the application, I'd like to see more that are relevant to the project. They're talking about a specifically Halloween kind of horror themed project. And I'd love to see, video clips, something that shows the quality of what they're presenting, so that we can kind of see the artistic quality that the community is being exposed to, that the participants are involved in. Jumping down to community engagement, while it sounds like the organization does have intentional strategies to make the performances available to low income, I don't see purposeful strategies to create some diversity in onstage participants. I would definitely love to see more of that, and attendance records for the past productions in this time frame, to see how many people were actually coming. The number that was quoted seemed high to me. And then the budget, echoing the budget is confusing. So I postulated, and I know that they can't answer this, but I'm guessing that the discrepancy I was seeing is that putting toward decreasing the organization debt that had been mentioned earlier in the application, but I don't know. Definitely need some clarity around that.
Great, thanks so much. Dr. Gann, do you have anything you wanted to add? I'm going to take that as a no. And Joe, you and Sam both have your hands up as well. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Sam, go ahead.
Perfect. I just wanted to add that the social media links that were provided, when I utilized those, the only social media that was provided is a closed group. And not as opposed to a page in social media, which I know feels like splitting hairs, but I, as a visitor, am unable to interact with the posts in a group as opposed to a page. I can't share posts. I can't comment. I can't tag a friend. I can't invite someone. And so it just felt like there was a lot of room for growth within the community to move that over to a public page rather than a closed group, which I know feels insignificant, but I don't think it is. And also noting that Facebook was the only social media platform that was used when they had this great visual opportunity, and it had great visuals from that they shared with us. It would be cool to share those on an Instagram, that a platform more geared toward photos like Instagram.
Okay, and the one question that I had was just around and the artistic quality section, mentioning that it involves area adults and youth in a presentation that provide additional opportunities to learn by getting hands-on education in the performing arts. And even now, as I'm reading that, I'm wondering if this is a relevant question. But when I hear that additional opportunities for education, I think, are there going to be opportunities for workshops and other learning other aspects of theater as part of this, or is the education just being part of the show? And again, now that I read it out loud, I think it's the second part, but it did make me wonder if there are opportunities for the first part, and if that is there's something that could be part of this project as well. And I echo a lot of what everyone else said, particularly about the budget.
Great. Well, everybody can take a few moments to go ahead and update your comments and your scores. As the staff from the Indiana Arts Commission mentioned, the scores will close in an hour upon the conclusion of our panel today. So you'll have up to an hour to continue to do that work. At this point, for our listeners or for folks who are watching our live stream, this concludes the Arts Program Support Region 10 panel. Applicants will be notified of the status of their grant following the June Indiana Arts Commission meeting. If you have any questions in the meantime, you want to get in touch with Ann McKim at the Arts Council of Southwestern Indiana. So with that, I want to thank all of our panelists today for this huge amount of work and effort to evaluate all of these applicants that make arts available to everyone every day in Region 10. So thanks to each of you, thanks to the staff and the staff of the Indiana Arts Commission for helping facilitate this process so these funds can be provided to these wonderful organizations throughout our region. So with that, good day, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I think Deanna wants us to stick around and